This is Chapter 1, Exercise 1-6, an algorithmic version of preparing a statement of retained earnings. In the algorithmic version of Exercise 1-5, we completed the income statement for Ernst Consulting using the data that was given. Now we'll take that same data and our income statement to complete the statement of retained earnings. Let's first complete the data for the statement of retained earnings. At the header we have Ernst Consulting, statement of retained earnings. What do we list next? For the month ended October 31st. The statement of retained earnings begins with retained earnings at the start of the period. We'll add to that net income or subtract out net losses, subtract out dividends, and what will be left over is the ending retained earnings for the period. So we'll begin the statement of retained earnings with what column? Retained earnings at the beginning of the period. Or in this case, since the company just started, it had 0 retained earnings. Now we'll add to that new earnings for the period. Remember, the company had net income for the period. What was the net income, and where do we find that? Well, we'll go to the income statement, and we see that on the income statement we completed in problem 1-15, net income for the company is $2,270. Connect will then subtotal beginning retained earnings plus the net income. Recall that the next step in completing the statement of retained earnings is to subtract out what? Common stock, dividends, net income, or net loss? Well, hopefully you said dividends. Where do we find the dividend information? That would be given in our earlier data set. Dividends for the period were cash dividends of $1,760. Let's enter $1,760 in the statement of retained earnings. Once we subtract the dividends from our subtotal, what calculation do we have left? Retained earnings at the end of the period. So simply take the beginning plus the net income, subtract out dividends, and that'll be our ending retained earnings. So $2,270 minus $1,760 gives us $510 left in ending retained earnings. Let's check our work. And indeed, we've answered all the components correctly for problem exercise 1-16.